All right, we are live, and we wanted to do this because at the Harrisburg show this past year, we had a chance to sit down with some people that we typically haven't had a chance to do so in the past, or maybe we did in the past and we didn't have enough time that maybe we would have liked. So this one is all about Greg, and I recorded with Greg the very first day the show started, right before the doors opened, and it's a pretty short podcast, 16 minutes if I recall correctly. And I feel kind of bad because after I got done recording, and I was like, I don't think this conversation met its full potential, but I still think there's some good information in it. And Greg did a good job of talking about some really interesting things. I know he mentions his strategy for using Google Earth for scouting. So I just want to kind of frame this whole conversation. I know we both talked to Greg.
Mm-hmm.
He's from New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
He hunts very population-dense areas, difficult areas, not scared of getting after it, and literally doing just about anything to get it done within an ethical way.
I think Greg's a pretty sharp guy. You know, I talk to him on and off, probably on a weekly or biweekly basis through Instagram probably. And, you know, he does hunt a lot of those densely populated areas, but he also hunts a lot of big wood stuff too.
Yeah.
And I think he's pretty diverse as a hunter because of the different types of properties that he hunts.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going from saltwater marshes into, you know, mountain country. I think it's a little more than hill country than what we have, you know, what I'm used to. I think it's, you know, the elevations are a little bit higher. Going into like the big woods of Pennsylvania to suburban areas, I guess. So like the guy spends a lot of time in the woods, or a lot of time outside, does a ton of scouting, and kills, you know, some pretty darn good deer too. So I think for anyone like that hunts those kind of portfolios of properties, I think there's a lot to be learned, because he's not a one-trick pony.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and the track record's there. He works for UPS, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And he's got a family, and he's just – that's one thing that I always notice with these people. Everyone has a ton of responsibilities. I don't care who you are, or everyone is filling their time with something, whether it's important or not. But a lot of these people, they're not afraid to figure out a way to get it. They figure out a way to check those boxes and make the most of their time to fulfill their passion, regardless of what it is. And for him, I remember seeing on his Instagram story, I think this past weekend, he canoed out like 2 miles, and he went out there and found X amount of stands and traffic and paddled on back.
Right. Where
I'm at right here, I can say with confidence there was no one that got up early Saturday morning and canoed 2 miles to go scout for deer. And I can say that confidently.
I think the week before that, he was probably 6 or 7 hours from home scouting with Johnny Stewart and Bo.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think it's probably a weekly occurrence for him.
If Whitetail, like the Whitetail sport had 3-on-3 basketball, that'd be probably a pretty good 3-on-3 basketball team.
Bo, Johnny, and Greg.
It's a scrappy team right there.
Dude, I guess.
You don't see it? I feel like they're all sharp deer hunters.
Yeah.
And they all have their own little ways of doing things. I think that makes a good team.
Well, I think didn't all three of them kill from the same stand, like within 48 hours last year?
I know Johnny and Greg did last year.
Oh, maybe it was just 2 of them then.
Well, then there was another, I think one of Johnny's buddies. Yeah, 3 people killed it out of one tree.
But, okay, Bo was excluded.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bo.
They'll sub you in. Well, it's
coming
March.
off the bench.
Yeah, it's March. I mean, you have to think a little bit about March Madness in basketball. I think everyone thinks more about basketball in March than probably during the NBA Finals. So maybe that's why I was top of mind.
So who would your team be?
If I could pick any team?
Yeah. You got 3. You got a bench position.
Man, I don't know. Well, who's your team? Why I think about my team?
Come on.
Here, no, we'll do this. No, we'll do this recess style. Like I pick one, you pick one, I pick one, you pick one.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to think. Like usually you have a point guard who's going to facilitate, and on 3-and-3 you got to have a tall guy. a tall, scrappy guy,
Okay.
and you got to have a shooter too. That like maybe you can't play defense, but you can dish the ball to him. So as I'm saying this mentally right now, I'm picturing a shooter as someone from the Midwest that just kills really big deer.
Okay.
And then I'm not going to give away my strategy. So I'm going to pick my shooting guard first, I think. And I'm going to go with, hopefully this isn't like taken as an insult since Frank is like the Midwest guy. I'm going to go with Mark Jury as my shooting guard.
Okay. See, I'm more like I want a team with attitude, and a team like when you look at us.
You can't be relevant for that long though,
and
not be scrappy.
He's not scrappy.
You don't think? I bet there's
like you look at.
I bet there's more beyond the surface. That's my gut feeling.
I want a team of like the 1980s, late 80s Detroit Pistons. Like I want the bad boys.
All right, well, who's your pick?
So I'm gonna go with who I would probably consider. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say that, but in my mind, I think he's a little bit like Dennis Rodman, a little bit squirrely, a little bit edgy, but he's not really. That's the thing. Okay. I'm going with Dan.
Infall.
Dan Infall.
That's a super good pick.
First pick.
That's a very good pick, and that's a good pick. See, I picture him more as a rebounder.
Dennis Rodman.
Yeah. All right, good pick. That really puts the pressure on me, and I'm trying to just kind of go through all the people we've talked to, maybe people that folks aren't as well versed with, but it's tough. There's some people that come to mind, but now as you create a team, you got to make sure they all mesh together. That's part of a team, and unfortunately, as you know,
I know
there's a lot of cohesiveness within this community with people that find success in their own ways.
I already have a couple people in my mind I think that you should pick that would fit your team, like the continuity, but I don't think you're going to pick them. And I'm not going to pick them because I already have my people set aside.
That's fair. I mean, I think my team's going to win anyways. I'm going to go with Jeff Sturgis as my point guard.
Ooh.
As my point guard, he knows how to get it done in a lot of different ways. He's going to be able to facilitate.
That's a good pick.
I think that's
that could
that's my guy.
How did he slip to number 3?
I don't know. I'm happy. He's my point guard.
That made me feel uneasy. Now, like this is really important. I'm gonna go Warb.
Okay.
Aaron Warburton. Yep.
And what position? Like, where does he?
He's a point guard.
Yeah. That's good. So I'm left with the scrappy guy, or maybe someone that's a little polarizing. And man, this is tough. I think, and you may be very shocked with this, but for some reason, this is my gut feeling, and it's pulling right to it. If you've heard on every single intro of this podcast about X amount of Pope and Young record Michigan public land books, and when it comes down to scrappy, if you get it done in Michigan, if you can go against the grain and figure out how to get it done, he's come down to Illinois and has killed some really nice deer.
Yep.
And I haven't, I would say I know less about John Eberhart than probably the average John Eberhart fan, so I'll admit that. But my gut feeling says John will be a great center, even though isn't actually necessarily super tall. But when I think scrappy and grabbing rebounds and giving an old nut tap just to get a rebound, I think Eberhart could be a good fit. And I apologize if he's not, if I've looked into this wrong, but that's my pick.
Okay, so recap your team.
I have Jeff Sturgis at the top of the key, Mark Jury on shooting guard, and I have Johnny Eberhart down post grabbing rebounds.
That's funny because like the friction between Dan, which there is no friction there. I want to make that clear, but just seeing that matchup, Dan and John going at it, that's funny. So all right, I'm left with my last pick, which I kind of pigeonholed myself a little bit.
Yeah, so you have Aaron from THP.
Yeah.
and you have Dan Infalt, which those two work together fantastic. So that's a good pick.
Yes, but like back
chemistry.
but back to the continuity thing, like that kind of excludes some real killers like that are in the back of my mind because of the continuity thing. So I'm gonna. This pick is gonna be way like this is like the dark horse, right? Like this is like the 16 seed beating a 1 seed. Yeah. And it's within the beast community, so I'm gonna go with Joe. Rettmeister.
Good pick. That's a very solid team. I
don't feel that good about it, honestly.
But I think, as far as chemistry goes, I feel like they could all pass the ball without talking. Like they already hunt together to some degree, all same school of thought. But I went full market cap.
Yeah.
Signed the biggest names I could, and that's all right. So if anyone's still listening to this and doesn't think we're completely crazy, folks, we'd love to hear what your 3-on-3 team would be.
Yep.
Like who would be your 3?
4 players, counting yourself.
Yeah. Yep. So perfect. All right, let's roll into Greg's episode. If you really enjoy this episode with Greg, thankfully he has done quite a bit of other podcasts. So if this is the first time you've ever heard Greg, you can go back to our podcast we did with him last year, or you can go over to YouTube, type in Greg Litzinger. You'll see a bunch of different podcasts, or you can type it into your podcast browser. So we hope you guys enjoy this episode, and let's get into it.
Lights, camera,
follow the trail.
ready to shoot.
If you know where a deer's bedding and you know where he's eating, that deer should be dead.
If you're passive on a deer, what you're doing is you're teaching them.
I've got 30 bucks in the Michigan record book. Everyone but one has had at least one previous wound on his body. Some had as many as 4.
Trail Cam Radio from the guys at Exodus.
All right, Greg.
Hello.
We got
Back
Greg
again.
Litzinger here, Great American Outdoor Show. Last time we talked was at the show.
Last year.
Right here.
A year ago. Woo.
And thanks for coming by. We're running a little late today.
It's a man thing.
Yeah, and it's the first day of the show. That's how that always works. But how was your season?
Good, frustrating, but a good learning experience. Had numerous encounters of, I had a clean 168 at 7 yards, and I was put my stand up, and he came out. So that was frustrating, but at the same time, like I won. I might not have killed him, but I beat him. Never seen him again after that. Killed a 7-pointer in PA in the mountains. It was a 10-year quest to kill a buck out of state. Finally happened. And there's a whole story. We killed 3 bucks from the same tree in 24-hour span. That was pretty gnarly. Had another encounter just recently, last week, had a buck come out, but full draw, no shots. So I had a success at getting deer in range, not just seeing them, but actually like in the wheelhouse of shooting. But, with bow hunting, I don't have them opportunities of cutting shooting lanes, in public. So frustrated, a little bit, but at the same time excited because I've gone seasons where I've never seen a buck worth shooting and have that much activity in PA, New York, and Jersey. I'm pretty pumped about that.
Yeah, and for people who don't know you or didn't listen to the last podcast, you're from New Jersey.
Yes.
Hunt super high-populated, dense areas.
Yeah. The more pressure, the more I gravitate towards those areas. I'm not the smartest man when it comes to that, but I like that challenge of killing a deer that 100 people are trying to kill.
Mm-hmm.
And doing it as natural as possible. No food or anything like that. Even very light trail camera use. Just try and just pit me and the deer one-on-one.
One thing that you said last year that I found really interesting was you were at the show, and then you said, well, next weekend I'm already scouting for next year. And from what I've gathered, and I followed along on social media, but it seems like you scout a lot with any given opportunity. What are you doing?
My wife's a saint, by the way. Monica, you're a saint for allowing me to do these things.
That's hilarious. So I guess for people who are maybe out east or in dense populated areas, I guess I would love to know kind of your process on what gets you to go check it out, and then the process of after you get there.
As my process, as it's constantly evolving, but lately I've been trying to just target big, massive chunks, 5,000 plus, because if I can see good sign in the middle of a 5,000 acre piece, there's a good chance that deer is living on public 70, 80% of the time. I kind of shy away from smaller pieces outside of the rut type hunt. So big, massive chunks of salt marsh or timber, that's kind of what I gravitate towards. And usually they get hit hard. In Jersey, you're allowed to bait, nothing against it. We got a liberal, gun season, baiting, crossbows legal. So it's a very challenging, endeavor. But big, thick, nasty chunks of either big woods or salt marsh that requires tidal marsh, so it requires a lot of effort. I almost drowned this year hunting the salt marsh, chasing a buck, so that was entertaining.
Well, tell us about that.
The season from the zone, it ends right before gun season, so it just stops the end of November. And the week I've been hunting out there, and it gets really ramp up that last 2 weeks November for some reason. This area it's bucks are there, but not really. But then the last 2 weeks November, the place just turns up. And so this year, all right, I'm going to be out there. And I'm going out and I'm glassing this big flat, and there's a little high rise where does bed. And, it never works this way, but I put the tripod up. I got a set of 1250s. So I'm pretty good at distance away, and I'm just glassing, and I go, that's a buck. I mean, instantaneous, just right left is a big, clean 10. And I'm like, oh, all right. The tide's high. I have to wait to, got my chest waders on and everything. And I glance to the right, and I see this 5-pointer that was bigger, taller, and he had the doe. So this 10-pointer was submissive to this massive 5-pointer. And the wind was good, but it was just, with the tide and timing, I was like, I'm going to come back tomorrow, perfect wind. And I got to cross this ditch that's, this high, and I'm at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm crossing this ditch, and I lose my footing, and tide takes me down, and drop the tripod with the binos, and pulling that up. I lost my flashlight, lost my compass. And I come to, and it's pitch black. I don't know where I'm at. I don't know which way to go. I can't see anything. And the tide's coming up, and it was a little sketchy, and it took me a while to find my bearings, looking for a car, airplanes or anything. And then finally, once my eyes adjusted to darkness, I could see where I need to go. And I ended up crossing 2 more ditches, going over my head. It's scary,
Yeah.
Fun, but scary.
Yeah.
My wife don't know that story, by the way, so.
She's not going to listen to this.
No.
But, wow, so did you have your phone with you or anything? Or
yeah, I had a phone in a dry bag. I had a life jacket on, I did it right, but still, when those tides coming in, these little ditches they're narrow, and it's near the opening of Big Creek, so it rips pretty good. And I just lost my footing, and wasn't expecting that, and it's my own fault for not trying this before the season. But
I mean, still, does that change seasonally? I'm from the river world, so you get flooding, and so is there anything like that with ocean tides?
Yeah, every twice a day the tide's coming up, coming down, and that's scary. I mean, that's why I gravitate towards those areas. There's a lot of good deer, but it's hard to hunt them because there's islands and they avoid trees. These deer would literally avoid trees, so I've been hunting from the ground, learning that where they're using these little patches of grass, scrub grass. I don't know what you would call it, but you got salt marsh grass this big, and there's just something this tall, 2 feet up. That's where they're traveling.
Really?
And it's a trial and error thing because you can't put cameras out there. The tide will take them away, or somebody will steal them, or I don't like theft, so
yeah.
it's a lot of glassing. It's almost like a Western style hunt. You sit in a point and you glass. All right, nothing's coming here. You go down the next point, nothing, and it's a 2-3 year process for me anyway. I'm sure there's people out there that can go out there and get it done, but I'm not that guy.
So when you're out there, just curious, is there other people crazy enough doing what you're doing? Are you running into people? Or are you seeing
duck hunters and trappers,
trappers
and duck hunters and crabbers? I'll see some crabbers, and those dudes are something else. I have got crabbers look at me. They're like, "What are you doing out here?" I'm like, "Deer hunting." They're like, And they gave me the look of like, crazy. And I look at them like, what are you doing here? Clamming and crabbing? You guys are crazy. Yeah. It's a mutual crazy, like, little head nod, like,
yeah.
All right,
Keep on. Interesting. So, I guess.
Because if you talk to, like, by May duck hunters, they always see big deer out there.
Mm-hmm.
I know guys that are diehard duck hunters, always seeing big deer.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't deer hunt, or they might gun hunt. They don't bow hunt. And after a while, you hear all these stories like, I got to get out there. And
yeah.
It's a labor of love mixed with misery, and lots of misery and lots of walking and lots of wet, getting wet all the time.
Mm-hmm. Would you say, is that your favorite area to hunt in the New Jersey eastern area? Are the salt marshes? Is that what you gravitate towards the most, or is it
the
big timber too?
It's closer. I like that because big timber you get it's more people.
Yeah.
Like at them remote islands. Sometimes I got a canoe in,
mm-hmm.
take the canoe and ride the tide out, and ride the tide in. So if you take the tide in and there's no deer on this island, you got to wait for the tide to like go back out. That sucks, real bad, because it's a waste of a day. Cause you're stuck there for a day because it's flat. Like you can't leave this island. So you're like, oh, no deer showed up today, and it's like, yeah.
Is there any way to, in your experience of ruling those islands out before you get to them, or do you pretty much have to go walk them?
Yep, just walk them, and it's old school method of just trial and error. And in some islands you think, man, this is great. It's the furthest away, nothing, no deer sign, and then you're like. And other times it's like they're all out there, and you got to go through little daisy chain islands, and usually that's where the does blow you out. So it's a constant chess match because you're like, all right, there's 6 islands, you get one shot at this, and it's always wrong, or you get it right, or you see them and you can't get a shot. So it's like, all right, I won, but I didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
Like Onyx maps and aerial photos is definitely. Key to hunting the spots.
Aerial photo?
Yeah, aerial photos.
Oh, aerial photo.
Yeah, like Google, you can see the trails and whatnot. And a lot of times I've been getting away from areas where you can see a heavy trail because that's, I can see it. That means other hunters see it. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, I'll go over here. And usually I'll find bigger buck sign away from those ones.
Mm-hmm.
Save them for the ruts because it's does and whatnot.
Can you scout these salt marshes this time of year?
Yeah.
No problem.
It's the best time to do it because the ground's frozen, and if you do fall in, you're not, like, falling in.
Yeah.
Or you can just, like, sometimes not wear chest waders because walking 2 miles in chest waders is the worst.
Got it. I guess when you found the most success, how far are you typically going back? I know that's kind of a blanket question, but.
It's a 50-50. Sometimes, those islands that are close to a road, everybody drives past, that's where he's living. And other times it's, if you can hunt 3 days in a row, you stack them on that, that far island. All right, they're not gonna. You can come here, one day, and you get 3 hunts on one strip of islands. But, I haven't found a pattern. I guess if I kept a data entry log, I might see a pattern, but that's really not my. I'll keep a log, but I'm not a big data guy. Like, oh, the wind was this, yeah, the barometer was doing this. That's just not my.
Let me ask you this. So, are you going back and revisiting some of those islands that you went there once, you didn't see sign, but like, gosh, this looks great. Do you ever go back and revisit those to see if they've been shifted over there?
Exactly. Because you never know what they said with the duck hunters or pressure or even tide. Like if we got a couple super high tides, or there could be oak trees out there. And like that's the biggest thing because you're like, man, I know that island holds oaks with that group of islands out there. So you go out there and it's like dry. It's pretty much a wasted sit. Like an all-day sit, you take the canoe, you go all the way out, it's a wasted sit because there's nothing on that island. But the only way to find that out is to ride the tide in and out. And it's like, that sucks, But that's just the nature of the beast with hunting,
It's just wild to me that
I get good scenery, I love to smell salt air. I guess it's cool, It's it's not for everybody, You get those. If I had a boat, it'd be cool. But I got a canoe. Maybe I should buy a duck boat. A motor will probably make it a lot easier.
A lot easier.
One of them little mud boats. You can just go in the mud,
Yeah, save you a lot of day trips.
Yeah.
All right, so one thing I wanted to ask, too, so when you're tackling those big timber pieces, I guess I definitely have a better understanding of your approach to salt marshes, but what does that look like with the big woods? I know a lot of people that listen to this Pennsylvania, East Coast. What are you doing? How do you break that down? And I guess,
like I said, if it's flat, just walk transition line. There's always big woods have swamps. Just walk that transition line and look for rubs. You're like some big rub guy. So if I don't find a bunch of big rubs or at least one or two, I usually don't hunt. I'm probably blowing past some good areas because I know some bucks just don't rub. If I find an area like come out and point, there's a bunch of rubs, I'll mark it, and either come back and scout it, or if I find one in the middle of the ground, in the middle of the high ground, I'm like, all right, at least there's one big buck in here. And I'll do the perimeter search. If I don't find big tracks, usually it's like on to the next.
Got it.
And then I probably do walk by some good spots. I'm sure every hunter does. You're like, there's no big buck sign you leave, but that doesn't necessarily mean big buck's not there. But usually, in the core areas, when you walk up and like,
you can feel it.
You can see it. You're like, oh, big tracks, big rubs, there's scrapes. You're like, usually they kind of go hand in hand. But some of these older deer in these high pressure areas, they just they don't move much. Like even outside of hunting season, they might have they might be in a little 6 acre piece something out in salt marsh, and they never leave unless it's dark. So the odds of them leaving a bunch of sign, if they do leave it in the mainland, it's 2 a.m. stuff, 11 p.m., which is ain't doing me no good.
Are you ever looking at population maps to see like population density? I mean,
of people or deer?
Yeah, of people and ruling that out, or is it
no?
Or does the piece trump the population?
If you got 5,000 acres, there's guaranteed there's one mature buck in there, at least one.
Right.
And you find the thick, nasty stuff. Usually start with that, and that's what's good. Google Earth, you can transition from summer to winter, and you can find those little dark pockets.
Yep.
I just marked. I'm trying to match it up on the Onyx. I'm like, all right, that looks very similar. I'm going and look for that, and usually there'll be some buck sign in there.
So you're changing the Google Earth to the winter?
Yeah.
Go back to a winter picture, like historical.
Yeah, and you can look at that, and you can see, and some of the maps you can see the oaks. Like I'm not a very good tree guy, but you can actually see like that looks like oaks. You know where oaks, and you can actually see it where because oaks will hold their leaves before a little longer than maples and whatnot. You're like, all right, there's a patch of oaks there. You wouldn't know that, unless you walked it. But having wife and kids, time is short. These last years it's been challenging for scouting because it's like I had to be super decisive. I can't be like 10 hours, something just walk around the woods and go walkabout. So I got to be real. Like, all right, I'm going here. I'm checking this. Wife's texting me. I got to take the kid here, do this. So I have to be a lot more calculated, and that's been an adjustment. Having responsibilities.
It sucks.
Yeah.
But
adulting,
I really like that piece of advice of switching it to a winner on Google Earth. And I think we were just talking about this on the way over here, talking about Google Earth and how a lot of Western hunters use Google Earth more religiously than probably the majority of whitetail hunters. Yes. And what you can see on Google Earth is extremely impressive. And they have all the historical data from previous years, change the image.
Onyx. Put that up,
Well, when you put the two of them together, it's amazing. Like you go out like, oh man, this looks good. All right, is it public? All right, and so.
Yeah, and I come from an era where there was no GPSs. This will be my 29th year, 30th year coming up hunting. So I've been at this, no GPS, just a compass. So I got old journals and whatnot of compass readings. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like I look back now, I'm like, what did I write this? There's like coordinates. I'm like, I don't even know what this is. Like now it's like pin, boop, I'll go right to it.
So much easier.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I think they're about to say the national anthem, so we're gonna wrap this part up, and we're gonna have a part 2 about rubs, and we're gonna release that this fall.
Oh, sweet.
So until then, Greg.
This is all just my observations, not real. Like
disclaimer.
It's not 100%. Yeah.
No,
if it doesn't work, this guy's fault.
No, we really appreciate you coming on and stopping by. I know you had to get up early to drive over here, so we really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's for what's that, labor of love.
Yep, and plug your Instagram and anything else.
Bowhunting Fiend, YouTube, Instagram. I'm slacking because, well, I'm a dad with kids and I'm lazy. So, sorry. I'm sorry.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah.